Welcome back to 20-Side Adventures. This episode, we're going to be talking about Paizo's errata from the fall. This has been out for a little bit, but I did want to talk about it. If you're not familiar, Paizo every quarter releases errata, correcting generally mistakes in their prints. However, sometimes they find things just aren't working how they intended, and so they will actually update the game rules, kind of similar to an MMO update. And in this one, Sure Strike, or True Strike if you remember the old name for it, got a little bit of a nerf, and there's been a little bit of uproar on the Reddit about it. And this really only impacts you if you're playing in organized play through the Pathfinder Society. If you're playing at home and you don't like these errata changes, as always, as a GM at your table, you can choose to ignore or not use them. However, I always encourage trying to play as close to the game as possible, so generally my table will institute these erratas unless there's something that we just don't agree with. For example, the original printing of how death worked in the new remaster edition was a lot more severe. That's even a bit extreme because it really isn't that severe. I continue to hold it's near impossible to die in Pathfinder. They immediately errated it, and we've continued to play with the as-printed rules. So you can continue to do that with Sure Strike if you so choose. If you guys like the content going on here on the channel, please give a like and subscribe. It really does help support us here. And with no further ado, let's crunch some numbers. So admittedly, if you're not a big fan of math, this may not be the video for you, and you may not want to open up the hood, look behind the screen, and see how the sausage is made with some of the Pathfinder numbers. Because one thing with Pathfinder, their numbers are super tight, and that's a well-known fact, but sometimes actually seeing the probabilities on things can remove some of the element of suspense in gameplay, so tread forward with caution. So just to get started, I took character levels of 2, 7, 13, and 18, gave the supposed runic bonuses you should be rocking at that time, and assumed the character is maxing out their to-hit number when I pulled these numbers up, and I am looking at the average mob generated by a monster generator for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Through Foundry, it's a great little tool if you're trying to make monsters on the fly, but it gives you an average range of an average monster at that level, and I'm looking at if you're fighting something that's the same level as you, or if you're fighting perhaps a big bad evil guy that's 4 levels higher. As you can see on this chart here, yes, it's going to go here, these guys are pretty much always going to be a 10 or a 16 to hit until you reach level 18. This assumes you only have one stat boost in there to your hit. If you get an Apex item or manage to squeak in 2 stat bonuses when you hit 20, these numbers fall back to plus 10 and plus 16. So as you can see, if you're fighting something the same level as you, on average, you're going to need to roll a 10 to hit. If you're fighting the big bad evil guy, you're going to need to roll a 16 to hit. Now, if you're fighting a monster that's heavily armored, or a bad guy that's heavily armored, that number could vary. Again, this is the average. This is also assuming you're maxed out on your to hit. Now remember, this is where fighters shine. All of these numbers are generally going to be 2 less for fighters. So that makes it real easy to see under the hood as to why fighters are so successful at what they do, fighting. All right, so what do these to hit numbers mean? Well, basically you're going to have 55% chance to hit normal guys of your level. You're going to have a 25% chance to hit the big bad evil guy. You're going to have a 10% chance to crit the normal guy and a 5% chance to crit the boss. So what does Sure Strike give you? Sure Strike lets you roll twice and take the better. So basically you're rolling with advantage for those of you coming from 5th edition D&D. So that moves the 55% to 80% and the 25% to 44% that you are going to hit this bad guy. It means you're going to crit 19% chance and 10% chance respectively. So what else could you do with your action instead of a Sure Strike? So basically, the change to Sure Strike, if you're not familiar, is you can now only be affected by it once every 10 minutes. So you cannot spam it routinely through a fight. I'm not sure how many people are really doing this because the Magus really only has 2 level 1 spell slots and the Bard only has 3. And maybe you're doing a Battle Cleric, so you've got maybe 4, so maybe that's where that comes in a little bit more. But ultimately, what other things could you be doing in place of that single action? Well, you could be attempting to demoralize, which is going to give a -1 or -2 penalty, and you could be moving into a flank. Those are all single actions to give you a benefit in combat, as well as your allies a benefit in combat. And now what does that really look like number-wise. Basically, every -1 penalty is increasing your chance to hit by 5%. So if you can get into a flank and have a demoralized creature, you're now looking at a 70% chance to hit instead of a 55% chance to hit on a same level creature, versus Sure Strike's 80% chance. So you're still a little bit better odds to hit a normal guy on Sure Strike, but why would you want to be burning that spell slot? And then against the big bad evil guy, if you're able to stack all 3 penalties, you're looking at a 40 versus 44% chance. So if you're already in a flank, getting that demoralize, you're basically in the same realm as Sure Strike. So that single action can be spent, I think, more effectively than just giving yourself advantage, essentially. Now, the other thing to consider is when you're in the flank and you're adding Demoralize, you're also increasing the chance to hit of all of your friends. So these to hit numbers start to become cumulative instead of just helping you in that kind of selfish mindset. This is also a good example as why stacking debuffs are so important. Now, I think where Sure Strike shines is when you can use Sure Strike and you're already in these stacked debuffs. So if you look here, you're using Sure Strike against a creature that already has these penalties, you're increasing your chance to hit significantly. Your chance to crit doesn't really change that much because on big bad guys you're needing 20s anyway, so you're always looking at that 10%. You're really trying to maximize your potential chance to hit. So if you can get -3 and a Sure Strike, you're hitting with more consistency than you would be hitting someone that is same level as you, essentially. And if you're fighting someone same level, I'm not sure why you'd want to burn the Sure Strike, but you're basically, if you have flank, they have a -1 penalty from demoralized, you're hitting 91% of the time. So you're not going to really be missing. For the complaints on Reddit that this ruins entire builds, I just don't really see it. There's good things you can be doing with those single actions. Admittedly not better, but those to hit numbers are so small in the greater scheme of things. I think you could be doing something better with those spell slots. I think you could be saving Sure Strike for when it matters most and really delivering the maximum amount of damage in the most crucial instance, and that's what Sure Strike was designed to be, not something utilized every turn. And quite frankly, you just don't have enough spell slots to make an entire build around hitting with Sure Strike. It just doesn't make sense to me. There's other actions you could take with that single action that are going to get you close to the same benefit, and in the greater scheme of a round, possibly better, because all of your allies are going to be combined. And I don't think when you're building your own character, if you were focused around Sure Strike, you could be counting on Sure Strike landing with the flank, with the demoralize from someone else in your party, totally maximizing those to hits. If that's your build concept, I just think you're doing it wrong, because when you build a character, I don't think you can rely on what everyone else at the table is doing to make sure your build is truly functional. So all of those things, I just don't think the Reddit complaint that this ruins your entire build concepts are really valid. You just backed yourself into too much of a corner and you're not being creative enough. Was this change really necessary? I don't think the numbers are big enough that spamming Sure Strike every turn was game breaking, but it's clearly not what the designers intended. They made Sure Strike to be cast when you have that niche must land a blow moment. It's do or die. I have to hit with this melee strike, maybe this spell strike. We have to land this blow to make sure the bad guy goes down, or maybe we don't win this fight. That's what Sure Strike was designed for. That's how you should be using it when you've got yourself in the best position. You've got that flank, you've got a demoralize or some other -1 penalty. So you are now giving yourself the best opportunity to deal that damage that's necessary. Short video, lots of math. Let me know what you think in the comments. Always like to chat with folks about the crunchier parts of Pathfinder, and this is definitely one of my crunchier videos. If you have any questions about how I came up with these numbers, please feel free to drop them in the comments. Love to hear from you guys. Please like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here on the channel, and wishing you a fantastic time on your 20-side adventures. We'll see you next time.